Hi, we're now going to discuss why did God actually create this demon called the Sahara? Why not just leave man alone? So let me first tell you a personal story that happened to me, and it really demonstrates why God made the Sahara. Before I tell you that story, have you ever played a video game? Now imagine there was no challengers on that video game. So let's say you're playing Mario Brothers, just you, and nothing's coming against you. Would you play the game for long? Well, listen to this story. One of the times, and this is an absolute proof that we see the existence of the Sahara, is when you start to pray. As soon as you start to pray to God, we Jews have three major prayers that we do throughout the day. Immediately your thoughts start getting flooded with these really insane, grandiose ideas. Suddenly you figure out how to become a millionaire, things that you didn't think about before. Why? Because as you start bringing in positive energy, the Sahara realizes this and starts to give you negative thinking or distractive thinking. Well, my Sahara, I got to be honest with you, is the Mike Tyson of Saharas. As soon as I would start praying, I would get just be flooded, and it would be very, very difficult to actually focus on the words and specifically the meaning of the words. So I once asked God, and I must have meant it really sincerely, and I said, please take away the Sahara. And an amazing thing happened. It was as if there was no more Sahara when I prayed. It was clear sailing. And the irony is, it was so easy for me, I actually asked him to give me the Sahara back. Because in life, there are two things that are very important. The first thing is we want to feel accomplished. And if there's no challenge, if I could just say, may the world be a beautiful place and everything would work, you know what? It might be beautiful, but there would be no sense of accomplishment. I didn't do anything. The example that is given is of Rabbi Joseph Isaac Shearson. He says, two farmers have a field. One farmer has a beautiful, perfect field. All you have to do is put in seeds and it grows. Okay, he doesn't feel very accomplished. He might be wealthy, but he doesn't feel accomplished. The other farmer is given a desert. And he says, I want you to figure out how to make the desert bloom. And he's like in Israel, the scientists there and the Israelis, they literally made the desert bloom. They figured out how to do this drop, drip kind of technology. Amazing stuff, and the desert is giving out beautiful plants. Well, that's a sense of accomplishment. So the first thing we have to know is that without the Sahara, without it being difficult, we wouldn't actually enjoy the challenge. We wouldn't enjoy life at all. And the second thing is, it's the very difficulty that keeps us fighting. Because you see, and I see this very clearly in myself, the Rebbe has a very important example of the Sahara. When man went to the moon, so the Rebbe was a great scientist, and he spoke about what they needed to do to get into space. Well, obviously, the issue is gravity. And so they had three rockets. As you know, pictures of the space shuttle is hooked up to three major rockets. The first rocket is the initial lift. So it lifts you off the major amount of gravitational pull. Well, now you're in a space that doesn't have that same amount of gravitational pull. So then there's a second rocket. And then maybe the third rocket gets you into space itself. Now, once you're in space, you're not in free space because you have another problem. If there's no gravitational pull, there's no gravitational push. So if you can't push against anything, you can't move forward. So what they did is they created an air bubble around the spaceship, and therefore it pushes against its own air bubble, and it moves forward in that way. And the Rabbi said, this is an example, in my own life I've experienced this very accurate example of the Sahara. You see, to begin with, anybody who gets involved, obviously if you're not doing anything positive, your Sahara is not attacking you. But anybody who starts to give charity, anyone who's doing something good, knows that there's a tremendous internal battle. It begins with those massive rockets. Because, in fact, if not for that internal battle, you wouldn't be fighting your way up the hill. In other words, if you had a video game and nothing was challenging you, you wouldn't play it because it's no fun. So it's that internal battle that pushes you forward. But once you get strong and you're moving forward with a certain amount of speed, well, those big rockets, that real challenge falls away. And now you have a smaller rocket, the battle is not as difficult. And then you get to even smaller rockets, and eventually you get to a space where you create your own air bubble. In other words, you get to a space where you don't need an outside force to motivate you. On a personal level, I think I've gotten into the space where, okay, on one hand, my Yetzer Hara obviously is always there, but it's quite, I would say, if normally the Yetzer Hara highest is 100, I would put it at like 0.01. It's not very, very loud anymore. But on the flip side is I've learned how to self-discipline myself. So therefore, what do? I do what I believe I should do. Now beforehand, I wouldn't have done that. I would have been much more selfish, much more self-orientated. We'll discuss in chapter 6 various personal challenges every single person has to overcome. But now, as those rockets fell away, and as I have the ability to tell myself what to do, the Yetzer Hara, in fact, gets quite, I mean, it's not totally gone, but it's much quieter. And in that peaceful state, I'm able to create my own motivation. I don't need that outside push. I can push myself to do what I believe is right. So in conclusion, the Yetzer Hara is in fact perhaps the single most important factor in the goodness and kindness, in the motivating towards goodness and kindness that we do. Thank you.